So the Munich Security Conference is probably the most important international conference on security topics. This year's focus was obviously on Russia's war in Ukraine, but any other big security topics were also discussed, such as conflicts in Africa and the Asia-Pacific, in space, in cyber, and so forth.
At this year's Munich Security Conference, we co-hosted a side event together with the Hertie School's Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs, with the topic of nuclear dominoes, evaluating the threat of nuclear proliferation following the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
So we picked this topic because the current non-proliferation regime is actually fairly fragile because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Quite a few countries around the world might draw the following conclusions. Number one, if Ukraine had kept its nuclear weapons that it gave up after the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia might not have invaded. And number two, Russia is constantly using nuclear threats, and this at least partially explains NATO's restraint vis-à-vis Russia, because NATO is scared that Russia will escalate to the nuclear level. And so countries around the world might think, well, it's actually quite useful to have a nuclear weapon. Number one, I might not get attacked. And number two, if I get attacked, or if I want to start a war, I can use these nuclear weapons for signaling that I'm very serious about this war and force my opponent to use restraint.
The global nuclear order is already under a lot of strain. So most participants at our side event agreed that any Russian nuclear use in Ukraine has to be prevented at all costs, or if it does happen, there needs to be a clear and unified response by the world to restore the nuclear taboo and condemn Russia's act. Europe has arguably benefited a lot from bilateral US, Soviet and later US-Russian arms control, which has now almost come to an end with the suspension of New START. So there was a lot of talk about how Europe could strengthen its role in the coming months and years in nuclear arms control. What is Europe's role? How can Europe help to restore or shore up the global non-proliferation regime and the global nuclear order?